Hey folks, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the LiveScribe Sky. This is a Wi-Fi enabled smart pen that retails for about $200, comes in two capacity versions, 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes. It's the only pen in the LiveScribe collection that uses Wi-Fi as opposed to a direct data connection or Bluetooth to sync information with Evernote or with any computer software so that it offloads memory as it gets full automatically into a cloud storage solution for you to use. Now, when we think of smart pen here in 2017, we typically think of something like the Galaxy S Pen or an active digitizer of sorts that allows you to write notes, doodle, and draw on a tablet. So that's the notion that we're heading towards. But a few years back, what was really popular by smart pens was kind of this dedicated all-in-one pen-top computing technology that kind of originated with the likes of the LivePad Fly Fusion pen. It actually uses the same technology on both of these, where there's this tiny little camera. It's not a standard camera, but it reads this unique type of paper by both manufacturers that has tiny dots embedded on it, and because of this, the camera can recognize its position and as such record whatever you're writing down into a digital form, kind of like if you're scanning it, and then transform that, of course, into a version that you have on your computer for your notes, as well as maybe put it into a typed version after using some converting software. So the pen itself from LiveScribe is fairly compact and small, as you saw from that brief size comparison with the Fly Fusion, which has the same tech, but it's a lot more bulky. It's still a little bit larger than your regular ballpoint pen, which means that it's going to create some heft if you're writing for longer periods of time, but overall it's easy to grip, and there's this slight soft touch edge to the bottom part of the smart pen. On the back, there's some basic information, including the capacity and also the model that you can see. The very top features a charging port. It uses a standard micro USB port to charge, and there's also a 3.5mm standard headphone jack so that you can connect a pair of headphones when listening back to the notes that you've recorded with the LiveScribe Sky and play them back. There's also the pen tip, which can be replaced, comes with a plastic little tip as well, and of course the camera sensor itself, and that's basically it. On the front, there is a loudspeaker that is a mono speaker, but it can play back your notes directly. There's a small OLED display, which is backlit to give you some more status information, and there's also a power on-off switch and the LiveScribe logo. So how LiveScribe pens work is basically the same across all three of their current products that they have on the market. Essentially, it allows you to write down notes, and then one part of it is being able to convert that into a digital copy for reference at a later time. Another part is recording audio that syncs automatically with the notes that you're writing. So I could be writing something like OS reviews and then writing down a few equations, maybe if I'm in a math class, and as I'm writing, it's automatically recording what the teacher or the lecturer is saying, so that when I tap on stop and play it back at another time, tapping on that specific equation will correspond to that segment in the lecture that was being referenced. So as a result, I don't have to copy verbatim all the things that is being said in a classroom or in a meeting, and I can just jot down the most important parts and refresh my memory accordingly afterwards. So it's pretty cool. Now, 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes doesn't seem like a huge amount on paper, but it actually stores quite a bit of content. You can store about 100 to 200 sheets of digital content before you should really transfer it out, but it can also be set up so that you do it automatically periodically once you're connected to a Wi-Fi network. Now, unfortunately, there are a few concerns that popped up with the Sky Smart Pen compared to the Echo, which is the most popular in the LiveScribe collection, in the sense that the Wi-Fi part is designed so that it really works exclusively with Evernote, and pre-existing LiveScribe software doesn't tend to work quite as well. There's still some support as well as debate on how this might be changed in the future, but if you aren't really tied into the LiveScribe ecosystem, there are certainly better alternatives on the market that will work with a wider range of software. Now, the Wi-Fi, again, you basically connect to a network, and it requires you to set it up the first time. And at this point, I will reference again the special paper that LiveScribe creates. They sell these journals that you can pick up for multiple subjects, and mostly packs of 3 for about $35 a pop. And again, this one has a college rule design with this regular spinal design that you can tear out the sheets at another time. This is a one subject notebook, and on the inside there are pockets as well, so it's pretty easy to use. And there's also this dedicated section at the front that you can have for a calculator, brightness controls on the screen, scroll speeds display for left or right-handed, time and date settings, battery status, amount of storage remaining, so on and so forth. But they're not specialized for things such as the Sky, which has that Wi-Fi component. So again, on the other side, you have the same features essentially. This is what the paper looks like. On the bottom, there is these record stop for the corresponding audio that you might want, and jumping to a specific position. If you zoom all the way in, you might be able to see these tiny little dots on the paper. So what LiveScribe actually claims is that you can print your own paper. If you go to LiveScribe's website, they actually offer these templates that you can print out. So as an example, I've done that on here. This is one LiveScribe journal, and it has 25 pages on here. You can see I have these tiny little dots, and for the most part it works. However, it's a pretty tedious process because you can't use inkjet printers. It's not going to be as easy to use. You have to really use a laser printer to make sure the dots print out correctly at 600 dpi or above. And since they are very detailed pages, they tend to print out pretty slowly as well. And it took me about 5 to 10 minutes to print out, this entire copy that you see in front of you. So that's a little bit of a nuisance that you'll have. But more importantly, you also have the ability to print out some of these additional guides that I have here. And this one corresponds to the LiveScribe 3 Smart Pen controls. So for Wi-Fi settings, I can now turn that on or off or sync it. And then, of course, I can also pop this sheet into my notebook for easier portability. On the other side, there's, again, the same thing, scanning for networks, selecting a network, entering the password. You can see tapping it one at a time using this virtual keyboard. And then Wi-Fi share is also possible through mode of Google Drive, Facebook, or Dropbox if you don't want to use Evernote to sync it up. So that's some basic things, and also a calculator. So as a quick demo, let's take a look at how it operates. Still going to function, I can change things such as volume, and then after you tap on it, you can kind of hear the speaker working itself. There's the various modes, and there's a slight delay, so you notice that there's probably not the fastest processor underneath. After you tap on a key, sometimes it takes a few seconds to register. Same thing with setting up Wi-Fi for the first time. But let's try to record something. You just tap on the record key down below here. You hear that click, and that means that you've started the recording process, and now it's going to pick up everything that I say. So what that means is if I tap on something again, like right microphone, once more, again, these tiny dots allow the camera to sense what is being written, so that it can then scan it and transform it into this digital form. So everything that you see on paper gets inputted into this digital copy completely, which is fairly cool. The microphone itself is also pretty good, so it picks up sound decently, even if you're in a lecture hall environment where there are lots of people talking around you and there's ambient sound and noise. It still focuses fairly well on the person who's speaking. The distance doesn't seem to be that big of a concern. There's going to be a little bit of echo, and the speaker that's built on here is not the best in the world, so not the best, which means that you will hear a little bit of tinniness if you're playing back directly through this source, but the recommended use is to plug in your own headphones, and that obviously works a lot better. So then, of course, I can then find the section of the audio that I am looking for, and that will correspond to whatever that I want to re-listen to. So once I'm satisfied, I'm going to press stop. It stops, and I can then tap on the section. So once I'm satisfied, I listen to, which means that you will, so it picks up sound decently, even if you're what is being written, so that you can then again like write microphone once more. So anyways, that's I guess a quick sample of what the audio quality is like. Again, you can tap on multiple words and parts to correspond to what I was talking about, or what this lecturer was talking about when you were jotting that specific note, which again could be really useful, so you don't have to copy everything down all at once. Diagrams, everything work, and if you connect your dots just from this one part and then draw an arrow outwards, it also continues that line of audio that you're recording, and you can still differentiate between what was being recorded at this moment and what's being recorded at this moment. So again, it uses these dots in this really smart way of both capturing the text as well as calibrating it to the audio, and it actually syncs up very well. So it's going to be something that's really quite useful for people who do a ton of meetings, for students during lectures. Although something I want to point out, just like I did with the FlyFusion pen, was that these aren't allowed in every single classroom environment, and even for lecturing, because it's actually illegal to directly record someone's voice without their permission in a classroom setting. So oftentimes, depending on lecturer, you should probably get permission first. Most people are cool with it, and then you can use it, and it's fine. design. Compared with the FlyFusion pen-top computer, there's also a few differences in the sense that the FlyFusion can install third-party programs and other guides that enhance the feature, just like a computer, you can install software, whereas on LiveScribe's smart pens, they are mostly as is, so everything that you see now in terms of audio and syncing up your text is what you get. There's no other programs that you can install after getting the pen. But overall, it works extremely well, and the ability to record audio is really what differentiates this from other competing smart pens on the market. And the LiveScribe Sky, again, is the only one that has this Wi-Fi feature. To be honest, in day-to-day usage, I would say that maybe Bluetooth is more practical just because you have your phone or tablet always with you and you can just sync it up with that app. And with Sky, you have to be connected to Wi-Fi, and sometimes if you're in a school environment, this shared Wi-Fi hotspot might be too busy or difficult to always connect to, so it makes for the process of actually a bit more tedious. So if you're at home or at the office, it actually might be slightly better. But even though the tech side of things of having Wi-Fi built in this pen is fairly cool, the execution of using just Bluetooth is actually slightly stronger, or just using a direct cable to sync out information in some cases. So otherwise, in terms of battery life and performance, it does a pretty good job. Some final parting thoughts I'll say is that the pen tip itself can also be replaced. It's a standard pen that you can write a fair amount, I would say about 80 to 100 pages before it runs out of ink, and then you can swap it out for any color of inks that LiveScribe sells in packs of refills, which are actually pretty cheap, under $10 for a set of these pen tips that you can then pop out. But you can also try using some third-party ones, and it seems to work fairly nicely as well. So that's not really a huge concern. The display is sometimes a little concerned. It's a little dim, it's not too easy to read, and some people have noted some concerns where the display itself gets broken after a while, or no longer shows accurate clock or time information. So that's something to keep an eye out for. So the quality might not be quite as good as people would expect if they're always dropping their pens or tossing it around the room. Definitely don't try to do that as much with this smart pen. Anyways, a pretty interesting all-in-one design. I would say that it's worthwhile if you are a student or a lecturer. Downsides, really the special paper, because even if you print your own, sometimes it is a hit or miss. If you try to print it out with, as you can see in this one, I tried using a regular ink printer and it didn't work because the dots weren't dense enough, so it didn't turn out right, so I have wasted paper. So it's tricky to always get right, and some of the software syncing stuff takes a little bit of time to get used to. But overall, it's a very smart concept and it's a smart idea. You can check out more details in our official written review, but for now, this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the LiveScribe Sky Wi-Fi Smart Pen.